Back to politics now. Republican leadership is calling on members to focus their criticism of Vice President Kamala Harris on her record in office and not on her race. Since President Biden withdrew his candidacy on Sunday and endorsed Harris, multiple House Republicans have mentioned her ethnicity as a reason why Democrats are uniting behind her.
Are you suggesting she was a DEI hire?
100%. She was a DEI hire.
Apparently, they feel, or a lot of Democrats feel, they have to stick with her because of her ethnic background.
I think she was a DEI hire, and I think that that's what we're seeing. And I just don't think that they have anybody else. I just think that they're in real disarray.
That sure seems racist, and what might play in a Republican primary feels very different in a general election. Now, former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is echoing the current House leadership stance, calling focus on Harris's race a mistake for Republicans.
Attacks I've heard Republicans give that are totally stupid and dumb to do is the DEI attack. That is a mistake for any leader to go out and say that on the Republican side. This DEI, that seems like a petty. Look, I disagree with DEI, but she is the Vice President of the United States. She is the former U.S. Senator. These congressmen that are saying it, they're wrong in their own instance.
All right. But while House leadership tries to cool down that rhetoric, former President Donald Trump, well, he's turning up the heat. In a press call yesterday, he said that Vice President Harris used her race to become Joe Biden's running mate.
She was by far the nastiest to Joe Biden. That's why I was so surprised that he took her. There was nobody nastier than her. She played the race card at a level that you rarely see.
Joining us now, co-host of MSNBC's The Weekend, Simone Sanders Townsend. Good morning, Simone. So let's get your take on this. This argument that Republicans are making that the vice president is a DEI candidate, but how some in the GOP are saying, hey, that could really backfire.
I think I don't often find myself agreeing with former Speaker McCarthy, but I think he is absolutely correct. Can I say a point about Donald Trump and this whole, this entire idea, this manufacturing up, this conjuring up of DEI as somehow a racial slur? Donald Trump's his running mate pick to be his vice president if he's reelected, called him America's Hitler. Political heroin. That, to me, is nasty, as Donald Trump liked to describe it. So I just think, look, Republicans in this particular in this race, Republicans are going to have to figure out how they would like to maneuver themselves over the next 100 days. It is not just about the presidency. Every single member of the House of Representatives is up for re-election, and Democrats themselves are defending 23, really 22 Senate seats. So if the Republicans can make a decision, they can either fight this battle over the next 100 days on race and gender, a battlefield on which they will lose because it is absolutely racist and sexist. And if that's what they would like to talk about for the next 100 days, wouldn't be my suggestion, or folks can talk about the issues. I think you can expect the vice president to keep it focused on the issues, and the indication, I believe, of how the campaign is going to respond to this. Second gentleman Doug Emhoff was asked about the attacks, if you will, on his wife just yesterday, the vice president, and he said, oh, that's all they got?
Yeah, noted that as well. Also, Simone, I know you were watching the vice president at her rally there in Wisconsin, her debut rally since becoming at the top of the ticket. And I heard from so many Democrats, and the chatter on social media echoed this. There's as fond as they are of President Biden, just a burst of enthusiasm, a breath of fresh air, seeing her deliver attack line after attack line on Donald Trump and doing so effectively. What was your take?
My take was that what the vice president did yesterday at that rally is what she has been consistently doing on the campaign trail for the last year. What she's been consistently doing for the last couple years as the vice president. So I think a lot of people are just now tuning into and really paying attention to the work that the vice president has been undertaking. So I'm not surprised that people are saying, oh, this is amazing. But I do want to caution Democrats and supporters of, people who are just maybe more excited about the vice president than they were about President Biden, not knocking President Biden and saying, oh, now we've got all this enthusiasm and whatnot, I don't think it's smart. And frankly, it's not how the vice president feels. There is a reverence that she has for the president. They have a deep friendship, a love they have for one another. I think we saw that play out in that campaign stop from Wilmington the other day. And people can be excited about the vice president without knocking the president, who, frankly, is still going to be the president for the next 6 months.
For sure. And on that note, Simone, in our last minute here, give us your thoughts as to what we might hear from President Biden tonight as he addresses the nation from the Oval Office.
I think you'll hear from the president about why he made the decision that he made, the confidence that he has in the vice president. And then I think you're going to hear him make a hard pivot in that conversation, in his address, to what his plans are for the next 6 months. A lot of the conversation in the aftermath of his announcement has been about what a great statesman he was, how he led remarkably during this time. But Joe Biden is not yet done, and I think he himself is going to make that case for him tonight.
Yeah, 8 o'clock Eastern, Oval Office address. We, of course, will have complete coverage here on MSNBC. Simone Sanders Townsend, thank you so much for being with us this morning.